Hello and welcome to this session. This session is about Windows Admin Center and Storage Spaces Direct. My name is Mikael Nystrom and I work for TrueSec. I've been a Microsoft Cloud and Data Center Management MVP for a long time. I work at TrueSec as a Principal Technical Architect. It's a very fancy title. My blog post is www.deploymentbunny.com, and to find me, it's easy. My Twitter handle is Mikael_Nystrom. I've been doing operating system deployment both for clients as servers, and I build Hyper-V-based data centers using hyperconverged infrastructure, storage spaces direct, and other things as well. I work as a trainer, instructor, speaker, and of course, I'm a consultant. Now, let's start digging into the important parts. Like the Windows Admin Center. It's web-based, HTML5. It's secure by default. It leverages things like JIT and GIA if you want to by enabling role-based access. It's fairly easy to set up. And since it's using remote PowerShell, there's no agent involved anywhere. It's a pure remote PowerShell from the gateway server to the destination machine, or from your own Windows 10 machine directly to the machine that you're working with. Speaking about machines, you're going to need to have Windows 10 1709 or later if you want to install it directly on your machine. And if you want to install it as a gateway server, which most of our installations are, then you install it on the Windows Server 2016 or 2019. The idea of a gateway server means that you can, from a client using a web-based browser, a web browser, you connect to the gateway server, you authenticate, log on, and then then the gateway will connect directly to the machine. It's a central installation. You can also build this highly available if you want to do this. But I think it's time for demo. It says demo here, so we are supposed to go through install, configure, and use it. So let's do that. Let's start with installation. Here's the installation. And as everything else, it's a next. Here's the first one. Select the port 443, unless you're using that port for something else in your environment and are not allowed to or anything like that, then you can pick any other port. We have customers running both 443 as well as 8440, 8400, 8000, God knows. Every port they can find. Now, using the self-signed certificate is not really a great idea. It will expire after 60 days. It's better to have a real certificate. And the only thing you need to have is the thumbprint. So let's grab the thumbprint. Thumbprint, we need to have certificates. There they are. Computer account, yes. And we're good to go. Personal, here it is. I can use this certificate because the name is correct. I only need to have the thumbprint. Here's the thumbprint. Now, I can't paste it in. I need to fire up Notepad. Paste it in and remove the first two characters and replace them with the same thing. I know this sounds weird, but there's a bug in the MMC snap-in and it grabs an extra character. I also usually redirect HTTP to HTTPS because it's convenient. The installer is usually pretty fast, takes a few minutes to install, and then you're good to go. It also actually supports Windows Update, so if you do have Windows Update, it will automatically be updated. There is also a manual way to update the portal if you want to do that, and there's also two versions of it. The stable version, that's the released version, and then there's a preview version. And if you do have feedback, I strongly recommend you to use user voice. And it turns out that the team behind Windows Admin Center is very keen on making people happy. So a lot of these requests that has coming up in user voice since they released it, they have actually been fixed or added or something like that. So yeah, use user voice. Okay, so here it is, finish, and the only thing I need to do now is start my browser, go to the page, log on, and here's the tour. Next, finish. Wasn't that bad. Now, there's one thing that you should fix, either before you log on the first time or you are going to fix it after you used it for a while. It has to do with authentication. The default authentication method is CredSSP, and that requires you to authenticate and authenticate and authenticate and authenticate. And it will become very boring after a while. So what we usually do is this. We enable constrained delegation. And the way to do that is very simple. You specify the server name, you grab all the nodes from Active Directory that you want to manage using constrained delegation. If this filter gives you too much computers, then you filter it out. And then you get the object. Once you have that, well, here's the object. And the only thing you do now is you get each and every node and set that to principals allowed to delegate to account. And you run this through. We have customers that schedules this once or maybe twice a day, but in general, once a day is going to be perfectly fine. Now, I already have another server that we connect to, and we have most of it pre-configured. So let's go to that. And here we have the other configuration. Now, adding nodes or clusters or servers isn't that complicated. You can see there's actually 4 different solutions. We have the server manager, add servers, computer management, clients, failover cluster manager for failover cluster manager, for failover cluster, and the hyper-converged cluster manager. Now, if I go to the hyper-converged cluster manager, you're going to see that I have 3 clusters here. So let's connect to this cluster. This is the failover. This is a hyper-converged cluster running 2 nodes, and it's running server 2019. It has been running for a while. It's a demo environment, so it has weird loads on it. But we can see a couple of things, that we have something bad going on with the disks, and so we can check the disks. 3 of them are bad. We can see the total amount of storage we're using. We can view all the drive alerts that we have, and we can see the details for everything. And this kind of granularity that you can see exactly what kind of drive you have an error issue with, how long time since the error happened, on what host it is, and so on and so on. This is very nice. You can do this using PowerShell, but then you need to know how to run different commands. So I like this. So we can see drives. We have the inventory of all the drives we have. We have the usage of the drives, and type, size. We have the ability to select a drive. We can do light on, light off. We can retire. We can unretire. That's weird, but pretty cool. So we can do and see most of this stuff with all the drives. If you go to the volumes, you can see all the volumes, the number of IOPS they have performed, the latency, the through output, and we can see by day and by week and month and year, and all these peaks is usually demo time, because then we normally use this environment. It's just a playground. I have 2 virtual hard drives. Here's disk number 1. Let's open that. Now you can see like the deduplication and compression. I saved 482 gigabyte, which is 22%. I can enable and disable this if I want to. I can expand the drive. It tells me how much available space I have. So whatever I want to do, I can do that with the volumes. I can put it offline. I can actually delete it, so which is a bad thing, but it is possible to do things like that. You can see the performance counters on each and every drive. Let's go back to volumes. Let's create a new volume. Inventory, create, and I want to create a volume number 3, 2-way mirror, and I'm going to consume, just for the fun of it, 25 gigabyte. That consumes 50. More options. Hey, we can do data deduplicate directly. Select Hyper-V. Let's create that. It's creating the volume. It takes a few minutes. Oh, well, not a few minutes. It takes a short while. And once that has been created, it's going to pop up and say, hey, it's created, and then it's going to show up. Hopefully. Oh, there it is. Now, of course, we can do things with it. You can see the usage we have, but I want to remove that drive. But before we do that, let's go here and minimize that and open the failover cluster manager and see storage, disks. And you can see that I have this drive here, right? Volume 3. It's online, it's healthy. So it did create the disk and it put it as a cluster shared volume for immediate use. So it did all these steps that I usually need to take in more or less just one single pane of glass, which is nice. Let's go back to the management server again. Let's select that drive and let's delete the drive. Yes, I'm sure. And the volume is deleted. Okay, let's go back and check. Do a refresh here. Volume is gone. If I open this with Server Manager, the volume is actually gone. So it does create in one step and it deletes in one step as well, which is very nice. And therefore you should also think about the fact that maybe you shouldn't remove things unless you're sure you should remove them. Okay, so we have this. This is nice. Let's go and check the virtual machines. It's coming. And none of them are running, 2 of them are off. We have total 2, memory, CPU, performance, nice numbers. Here we have, both of them are stopped. Let's select that one. As you see, I have the start, turn off, shut down, save, delete, save state, pause, resume. I have that. Date it was created, number of virtual CPUs. And I can tell you immediately this machine was not created using this tool, because the Windows Admin Center actually creates with 2 CPUs by default. So I can start this up, of course, and I can connect to it. So let's fire it up. Starting. And it started. And as soon as it's running, should be able to see this here. It is running. Now we have turn off, shut down, and we also have more and download RDP file. And that means it gives me the ability to connect directly to the machine. And here I am. And this is a KVM connection, so it's using RDP directly to the host, and then it does a key video mouse connection to that machine. So it gives me the machine directly. I don't need to authenticate through a normal RDP, and hey, the machine doesn't even need to run Windows to be able to connect this machine. It's a regular connection like anything else. So I have that machine, which is nice. Let's shut this machine down while we have the connection. As you can see, it's really having the connection. So you can connect to the machine directly. And you, of course, can log on to it. But let's create a new machine. So I'm going to create a new machine, name test 003, generation 2. It's going to be on 201. It's going to use that drive feels good. I can browse if I want to. I can enable nested virtualization directly. Number of CPUs is 2, virtual CPUs, memory is 2. And we need to connect it to the switch, in this case the uplink switch. I can create a disk, and I want to create an empty disk, 127 gig, and I would like to install the operating system from a network-based installation. Okay, I'm good. Creating a machine. Now compare this to using the traditional Hyper-V manager. That works, but hey, this is so much easier and so much better. And I'm going to show you something else. It should be here. Usually takes a few minutes or a few seconds for it to show up. I have 2 machines. It should say 3. Let's do a refresh of that. Here it is. So let's power it on. Starting. Started. Doesn't consume anything important right now. Now we should see that it's running and consuming no memory pressure, but yeah, it hasn't really started yet. So select that machine, download RDP file. Now it's using CPU and memory. And here you can see it's pixie booting. Oh, at least it's trying to. As soon as it downloads the MVP file, I can hit enter and then start the installation and things like that. But we're not going to do that. What I really want to do is this. I would like to turn it off. And I want to show you something that is very, very different from the Hyper-V Manager. When you remove a machine from the Hyper-V Manager, it's just disconnected from the Hyper-V Manager. Well, it doesn't do that here. When you actually delete the machine, you now have the ability, let me clear that up, you have the ability to delete the machine, including the files. And that is very nice and convenient. So it's still running. I thought I'd turn it off. Turn off. Turn off. Now it's turned off. If I hit delete, I have the ability to delete the virtual hard disk files. So it's the entire management of virtual machines, switches, volumes, drives. It's more mature than the Hyper-V Manager. Also manage the switches, of course, and you can do some configuration. You can't do everything, but you can do a lot. There's a couple of things you can't do, and I asked around about that. You can't create the pools, and you can't remove the pools. Why can't you do that? Because it was never intended to be such tool. It is a tool created for day one and beyond that, meaning that it's not created for day zero, meaning that it's not meant to be the tool you use to build things. It is the tool to manage what is already built. And as long as you remember that, it shouldn't be a problem. Let's see if it's gone now. It should be gone. Yeah, we only have two. So with Windows Admin Center, you can trickle down into drives, to volumes, into switches, into virtual machines, and you can do updates, and you can do diagnostics. There's a few things you can't do in here, but in that case, you can do it most likely directly here, meaning on the failover cluster manager. Here you can see all the resources that you have besides the hyper-converge stuff. So you can see the networks and the roles that is running on this server. You can also run validation, which is convenient and very nice. Of course, you can also go to the server manager and open the server. So in this case, I can open the 201 server and perform things. And I want to highlight one thing before we close this. And let's assume this is a core server, and you want to do something like you want to update a network driver. You can put the machine in the maintenance mode, and that's fine, but then you need to update the driver. How do you update the driver on the core server without getting really, really upset? Well, you can do that using PowerShell, of course, but there's a graphical device manager built on PowerShell, and it makes it possible to actually do that. So you can select a driver here, and you can do update driver. And you can install the drivers from a specific path, which is very nice. So you can manage the hardware, the physical machine, and as well as the failover cluster, as well as everything hyper-converged. And if you really want to do things like, maybe you want to do the driver stuff, and you want to do that on multiple machines, watch this one. It's a view PowerShell script. It gives you the list of the PowerShell modules that are being used. Here is all the PowerShell modules for the device part of this. And if you read the use rights, It says basically that you're allowed to use this in any form to whatever you like, but you should read it in detail. But it's not blocked from being used, which means that you can now find your items in here, copy and paste them into your own PowerShell script and use them as you see fit, which is very convenient and nice. Before we end this session, I just wanted to show you something really cool. It's called diagnostics. With diagnostics, you can collect the diagnostic information. You can automate this and collect every 24 hours. There's no immediate need to do that, but if you really want to have log files for everything in the Storage Spaces Direct Hyper-V Converged cluster, then you can collect this, then you can download them, and then you can enjoy them. I hope you learned something useful during this session, and I really wish you a rest of a very nice day. Bye.